Why, hello, learning nerds. Before we begin today's show, I want to thank our awesome sponsors, with first giving a shout out to Idle Courses Academy. Idle Academy is the first and only authorized vocational school for instructional design and online learning. It includes a comprehensive hands-on curriculum with certifications, credentials, expert coaches, mentors, a community of practice, paid experience opportunities, industry-preferred software access, live events, and ongoing updates. Your entire instructional design career is neatly packaged behind a single login for just $88 a month. Check out all the details at idlecourses.com/academy, and you can use my code Luke for $88 off the yearly membership. Okay, now let's start the show. Hello, learning nerds, and welcome back on in to the nerdiest podcast you're going to hear today. I'm your host. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I am a senior instructional designer, program manager, lecturer, author, blogger, podcaster, and YouTube. Overall, I am your learning nerd to help you on your instructional design journey. Whether you are just starting off or you've been doing this for years, all are welcome on into this show. And of course, you can learn more about this show, the blog, everything else I have going on over at drlukehobson.com. As a reminder, folks, Instructional Design Institute, the 7-week learning experience talking all about really everything from A to Z when it comes to designing learning experiences, is going to be starting up again in 2 weeks, actually, which is insane. 2 weeks is going to be coming and going very quickly. So on Monday, December 11th, is when the next cohort kicks off. There are about 10 spots still available if you would like to come on in and nerd out with us and to learn everything about instructional design to help you as far as from a career perspective, as far as for putting these different types of ideas you're going to come up with back into your learning experiences, or if you want to be able to just learn about how to become a designer, talking about portfolios, interviews, everything else of the sort. We really do cover it all within the 7-week program. So be sure to go down below inside of the show notes and apply today over for IDI. Can't wait to see you there. So what is today's podcast episode all about? Today, we are talking about instructional design projects in the real world. Where did this topic come from? Well, I feel like there is instructional design, and then there is instructional design. Okay, cool. Nice and confusing. What do I mean by this? I feel like there are two worlds of instructional design: how things should be versus how things actually are. I've heard this time and time again from instructional design grad students, actually, is that they learn about the learning theories, the processes, the frameworks, the models, and then they're shocked by how the real world actually operates. In extreme cases, I've spoken with some graduates of recent instructional design degree programs, or IDT, EdTech, LXD, whatever you want to say, and they feel ill-equipped, that they're not ready to be a designer, and they're kind of wondering what's exactly going on here. It's been well documented that my mind is still blown by how many instructional design related degrees exist today. If you want to be able to see a snapshot of this, head on over to YouTube and look up my latest video talking all about the state of the industry. And there is actually a section in there where I just Google instructional design degrees and I show you how many pop up as far as for sponsored ads before hitting the natural, organic part about Google. Now, don't get me wrong, truly, I think this is wonderful. I mean, after all, I teach in the EDD program at the University of Miami, and this program, from a personal perspective, has positively reignited my passion when it comes for teaching students about designing learning experiences. I truly, truly love working with my students and seeing their transformations, and it brings me so much joy more than anything else on the planet. While my courses at the University of Miami and my own courses within Instructional Design Institute cover the fundamentals of designing learning experiences, I also share story after story about the difficulties and the challenges of the role as well. It's not perfect. It's still a job at the end of the day. It also doesn't matter where you work. There are always going to be challenges. They're just challenges kind of in a different type of a shape or a form, but there are still things to be able to get around. So, on today's podcast episode, I want to break down how things should be versus how they actually are. And the intent of this episode, by the way, it is not to scare you, but I want to make sure that I'm guiding you down the right path. I want you to have a realistic perspective about the instructional design world. And I know that if I was entering in the field today, I really would want someone to tell it to me as far as for what is it actually like to do this right here and right now. So there are three main overarching topics that when I was thinking about this podcast episode that popped up right away inside of my head. So those are going to be the three topics that we cover. So let's dive on into this, shall we? The first topic is that you do not always have the option to use your favorite framework or model. I think you all know by now that I love backward design. To me, this instructional design model just makes so much sense. Start with the end goals in mind and then work your way backwards. It's a logical approach to solving problems with training and with education. Will you always have this luxury, though, of following your favorite model? Well, definitely not. No two projects are the same. Think about timelines, budgets, project scopes, stakeholders, SMEs, and more. Depending upon these factors could change how you approach the design. For instance, let's say that you are taking a face-to-face version of a training or a course, and now you have to transform this into an online learning experience. The person you are working with for the course is the instructor who has delivered this course, let's say, 1,000,000 times. They can practically recite the presentations in their sleep. You have 4 weeks to take the face-to-face version and to create a new online version. What are you going to do? My best guess is that you are not going to be following the backward design approach for a few reasons. The first is time. If you only have a month to complete this project, backward design is not going to be your friend. Time is a valuable asset, and if you spend this time by explaining about Bloom's taxonomy and then creating the blueprint from scratch and everything else of the sort, it's not going to go as you hope, and it's really going to take a considerable amount of time. The second issue is that if you already have access to the instructor who has already created a substantial amount of this material so far, it doesn't make sense to go back to the drawing board when a good chunk of the work is already done. Of course, these materials should be reviewed and evaluated for online use. You can't just simply flip a switch to go from face-to-face to online. And hopefully, everything does align with your vision, and you can simply make some twists and tweaks and a few things along the way to get things into what you both want this project to become, and you're not going back to the drawing board and starting from scratch. Another common reason is that you could be locked into a forward design approach. For all of the educators out there, this might sound relatable to you. You are put into a position where a decision was made for you and you had to design based around that decision. For instance, this has happened to me a few times where the software was selected first for a course, so therefore I had to design around the software. Where there are other options where a different type of software would make more sense? Yes, but this one happened to be chosen, so therefore I had to roll with it. In another instance, I was handed a textbook and said, this is what you are using. The contract's already been worked out. We're already working with the vendor. You are using this one. I go, okay. Guess I'm using this one. So therefore, I have to look and see what this is using, or else it's not going to make sense. So in those cases, there was little wiggle room for trying to use my favorite model, backward design, and instead it ended up being some type of a hybrid approach to still keep the design in mind, even though there's been a difficult hand that has been dealt in trying to be able to deal with this. The second topic is that instructional design is all about people, not tools. This is something that always surprises me when talking with aspiring instructional designers, is that they want to talk about theories, models, learning, authoring tools, all the fun parts about the job. But what's the most important skill you can work on as an instructional designer? Easily, without a doubt, it's to hone your people skills. Think of communication, leadership, influencing, negotiating, empathy, management, anything of a sort like that. That's what you should be working on. Working with SMEs and project management honestly feels like 80% of a job if I had to put some type of a number on it. If I pull up my calendar right now, you will see constant check ins with SMEs, team meetings, follow ups, project planning, marketing, engineering, customer supports, and other similar types of meetings to make sure that everything is still on track and good to go. As you can tell from some of these different types of meetings, they all revolve around working with other people. One thing that every new instructional designer should practice is how to explain the value of instructional design to others. I've been a part of projects where I'm introduced as the ID, and I can tell, but the SMEs immediately look at me like, so what exactly do you do? Many people now know about instructional design because of the pandemic, and now it seems like they just kind of acknowledge that an instructional designer is going to be on the project. But trust me, you're going to have plenty of confusing looks from stakeholders about what exactly is involved within this instructional design process. When I explain about instructional design, I also change the approach and the wording depending upon who I'm talking to. For instance, if I'm speaking with a stakeholder who is responsible for budgeting of the project, I am hammering home the value of performance. I want them to see that with my help, I can elevate their employees' skills, which directly tie into performance, which directly tie into the financial goals of the organization. I wouldn't speak to the stakeholder about the importance of writing clear learning outcomes or objectives. That just doesn't make sense. They're looking for results, so I want to highlight how the designs will directly impact the employees' results. Well, let's use another example about when it comes to speaking with academics. For them, I will be highlighting two key areas: their students and themselves. When I can share with professors how my ideas can blend with their teaching methods to improve the lives of their students, then they're thrilled. At the same time, the spotlight should be on the professor's teachings so they can envision their material being utilized in the best way possible. I don't need to speak to academics about ROI unless I'm creating a type of a professional development kind of a course with them. You need, at the end of the day, you need to think about the people, the communication, the messaging, and what's important to them when it comes to you, instructional design, and the project. And the last topic is that the scope of the project changes during the design. For this topic, I've seen 3 events happen time and time again. First, everyone discusses amazing ideas on the kickoff call. The second is that they fully realize how much work is actually involved to make these ideas come to life. And then the third is that they want to be able to brainstorm several alternatives to the original ideas. From my experience, there is always this massive amount of enthusiasm at the beginning of the project. Every stakeholder comes in with these grandiose ideas and concepts, and they envision this new product basically being the thing that is going to revolutionize their industry. This is going to change the world. It's amazing. And I get it. It's human nature to say that you want to create the world's best new thing, but there has to be a conversation, speaking about the world, about let's talk about the real world. How much effort is going to be involved here when it comes to being able to create the world's best new learning product? If your stakeholders want to create the greatest learning product ever, that's fantastic. Do they actually have the time, the energy, and the resources to be able to do this, though? Some stakeholders and SMEs will surprise you by saying yes, and they fully dedicate themselves to their new ideas. I can attest that this has happened to me before, and every time that this does really come to light, these projects are my favorites because they're amazing. We're all on the same page. People are dedicating hours upon hours to making this thing the very best it can possibly be. And of course, this shows in the final product because of how much levels of effort and dedication are involved in making this the very best it can possibly be. But what about the other times? That's when those three different steps I mentioned about seem to happen. You begin to follow the plan with these amazing new ideas, but as you begin to ask follow up questions, have weekly calls, start to design the learning product, then things start to change. Usually, I'll do some research and discuss with SMEs about how long this is going to take for a process and how much things are going to cost. And then I get that look. The look of, oh, I never thought about that before. For instance, simulations. Simulations often get mentioned about when you're bouncing ideas off of one another. Simulations can be a fantastic addition to the learning experience, but great simulations cost quite a bit. Simulations typically charge a fee per user. So let's say that if it's going to be $149 per user, and by user I mean learner, student, whatever the scenario is, well then that means that the simulation alone is going to cost $149 per person, and that could be a significant dent in the budget if the budget did not account for all of these additional extra costs, if this does not factor into the cost as far as for the price of the overall learning experience or the training or the course or the whatever we're currently building, well, then that could be a serious problem. Most SMEs, instructors, trainers, stakeholders, whatever you want to be able to say, have not had to pay this cost before, so it's like sticker shock for them. They had no idea about how much this simulation will cost them because it was already baked into the budget, or someone else purchased it before and they took over the course or the training, or some other different type of scenario where they never personally had to pay for it. So therefore, they just simply did not know. And 9 times out of 10, this will then lead to conversations around discussing alternatives for simulations. Now, of course, simulations are just one example. There are other different types of ideas that you can incorporate inside of a learning experience that are going to potentially cost quite a bit as far as for that goes. If it's worth it and it makes sense, then obviously explore that option. It could be something along the lines that I was just sharing with you moments ago about how if a software is chosen at the beginning and you need to use the software, then so be it. It is what it is, and you need to find alternatives. But overall, folks, what I've learned over the years is that a project is fluid. Things will change. This could mean that the schedules could change as far as for with the SMEs or the stakeholders, instructors, whoever you're going to be working with. And sometimes as far as for change, people will come and go. I've had multiple SMEs before start one project and then leave because of something else. Things pop up. Things will happen. Because, as true to the theme of this episode, this is the real world when it comes to working with other people. People aren't perfect, so therefore, you're going to have imperfections in the design process. So I'll leave you with one final piece of advice around all of this. My boss always tells me to be the river, not the rock. Essentially, be like water and move around obstacles because they're inevitable and they're going to pop up. But usually there is an alternative. There is another solution that you haven't thought about yet, and there is something that is going to help you with being able to complete the overall designs. Well, hey, learning nerds, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope I didn't scare too many of you if you were listening to this and you are thinking about instructional design. Once again, love what I do. Can't stress this enough. But of course, this is a job. There are the pros and cons to every job. So just wanted to make sure you had a little bit more glimpse of the real world and what it's really like. If you enjoyed this episode, rate it. Give it a 5-star rating wherever you are currently listening. I am not picky. Be a friend. Tell a friend and share this episode if you know it's going to help them out on their instructional design journey. If you want to learn about instructional design with me, the next cohort for Instructional Design Institute is launching on December 11th. Be sure to go down to the show notes. And of course, if you have any questions about this, making sure it's right for you, or any other follow-up questions, you can always reach out over to me. Luke@drlukehobson.com is my email. I promise that I will be getting back to you. But everyone, that is all I have for you today. I hope you had a wonderful, safe, and happy holiday with Thanksgiving that was just around the corner. Hope you are feeling well rested and recharged and ready to tackle another week. But hey, that's all I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.